Dear viewers, this story was written by a talented Ukrainian writer, Amira Batler. When I entered the room, my wife was diligently stitching something on the sewing machine out of red satin fabric. She was a master in this business. She'd been sewing since childhood, and her grandmother had taught her. She not only sewed clothes for herself, but also took orders. Earlier, when we were married, she worked at a sewing factory, and then, when there was a reduction in the number of workers, although she did not fall under it, she decided to quit this job, which required working the whole shift, and the pay there was not so much. I ran my own appliance store, and I was doing pretty well. Yes, sometimes there were difficult times like all businessmen, but in general, it brought me a good profit. We were able to buy ourselves a new house, spacious enough for us and our 2 kids. I was also able to upgrade my car in a couple of years. I sold the old one and bought a newer one. I also bought a used van, but it was more for work. My store now had a delivery service for Ingrid on the bottom floor in a separate room. I helped to make a special workshop for her, in which she now did her work. We had already spent 9 years in this house, moving here after the birth of our 2nd son. Everything was going well. Even the children's school was now very close, and they mostly walked there. One day Ingrid approached me with a request that might help with her business. Thanks, Mom. I was surfing the internet today, and I came up with an idea. Oh yeah, what's that? I could start my own online store like there are so many others. Yeah, I'm good with the usual ads, but if I had my own website? She rolled her eyes playfully, and then looked at me again with a pleading look. So what do you want from me? I'm not a programmer. Then I need to hire someone who is... Okay, sweetie, I'll think about it. Tutorial is corno. I'll just think about what I can do about it. I've got a lot of work tomorrow, and the day after that, I've got an inspection coming in. So just bear with me for a couple of days. Okay. By the way, dinner will be ready soon. Did you finish going through your magazines? Yeah, I'll be right there. Why don't you go outside and get the kids? I'll go set the table. I went outside to the old abandoned neighbor's shed where our sons used to play with the neighborhood boys. Hey guys, your mom's calling for dinner. I shouted before reaching the door. A few seconds later, it creaked open, and my boys came running out. What's there to play in there? It's just old boards. I told them what I thought. Dad, that's our headquarters. Aren't you just a kid yourself? Just be careful. The barn's kind of decrepit. All right. Dinner went on as usual. After the kids played outside some more, I sat on the couch and watched a little TV. When Ingrid came over and sat down next to me, I shared with her my concerns about where our kids were playing. Oh, come on. You went there once to check it out. You said it was holding up fine. She reassured me. I remembered that I did go there once, and it calmed down a little, but still, I couldn't stop worrying like a father. Ingrid found a programmer somewhere in an ad, and he came to our house to work with the computer and fulfill my wife's request. Of course, he demanded a lot of money. My wife tried to persuade him for a discount. By nature, she was a bit frugal, and even when she went to the market for food, she always haggled with the sellers. But this man stood his ground, and she paid him for his service. What's up? Are you happy now? I asked her when I came back from work in the evening and saw her uploading photos of her work on the internet. Oh yes, she replied with a smile. Only he drove up the price, demanding a lot for a simple job. He only worked for about an hour. She pouted her lips like a child who'd been robbed of candy bar. What did you want? Every job has a price. You don't do your job for pennies, do you? Yeah, she stared at the monitor for a few seconds. Still, he could have come down on the price. Days passed. My wife's business began to gain momentum. Now she received orders not only from our city, but from other cities too, and sent them by mail. Things did turn out really beautiful, and many customers wrote good reviews about her, so her online store soon became popular. After a while, she realized that she did not have time to fulfill orders, and she needed an assistant in the workshop who would do a good job. She rummaged through her desk and found an old notebook and started calling her former colleagues she'd worked with at the factory. But some of them answered that they were already busy, some of them had moved to another city, and some of them just didn't want to work with her, remembering what kind of person she was. Ingrid realized that she had to look for someone else, a new person. But to let a stranger into the house for a long time, she did not like it very much, and still, she had no choice. She opened a city website with ads and posted her own, that she needed an assistant, the payment she specified as negotiable. No one responded for a few days, and my wife sometimes had to stay up late to keep up with her orders. With her orders, she liked the fact that so many orders were coming in, and she didn't want to lose customers. But she was also short of time lately. Sometimes she didn't have time for dinner, or she didn't always clean the house like she used to. She'd even gotten a little jumpy lately. I've tried to talk to her to get her to rest a bit, because it's okay to send the order in later. You just don't understand. If I get bad reviews, I'm gonna lose my reputation. John, you can buy any junk anywhere, but an exclusive item is a specialty. A lot of my customers are rich. I don't want to lose them as customers. All right. Calm down. I'm just worried about you. You've even lost weight. She did lose a little weight, either from her own nervousness or from eating less. But it had even transformed her a little. Her figure was gracefully slimmer than it had once been. I noticed her more attractive now, though even before that I had always treated her with affection, and I liked her anyway at Keurig. Ingrid updated her ad for job seekers every day. Then one day the phone rang. Hello, I'm calling about your ad. You're also looking for a sewing room assistant, right? She heard a man's voice on the phone. Yes, I do. But I assumed it would be a girl. It's usually a woman's job. What makes you so sure a man can't do the job? You haven't seen me in action, have you? I can give you recommendations if you are interested. His voice seemed so polite and persuasive that Ingrid decided to agree to meet him and invited him over the next day to see if he was as good as he described himself. For this purpose, she even found unnecessary pieces of cloth and old patterns and prepared everything for the future interview. The next day, he arrived at the appointed time, not a minute late. Good afternoon. Ancha, we set up the interview yesterday. He introduced himself when Ingrid opened the door. There in front of her stood a tall young man in his 30s, dark-haired, a little Latino. He was dressed plainly, but clean and neat. He wore lacquered shoes, well-polished, but still not new. Come in, she said in a thoughtful voice. Chuck entered, pausing in the hallway. He reached into an old briefcase and pulled out several sheets of paper and held them out to his hostess. What are these? These are my references from former employers. You're welcome to read them. I don't really need your paperwork. I just want quality work. Come on. She invited him into her workshop. The man obediently followed her before his eyes. Before his eyes appeared a room with many shelves, chests of drawers, 2 large tables for cutting, a few standing racks with already finished products, and a sewing machine. A nice place here. So much stuff. How do you keep up with it all? He must have had help, huh? How? I always do everything myself. Now I need an assistant because it's a lot of work. Spy yourself? Why? You know the saying, if you want it done well, do it yourself. Yes, I've heard it. He walked over to the sewn dresses and suits, covered with transparent cellophane bags, and began to admire them. Just amazing work. You need to be more than a seamstress. You need to be a fashion designer. He wanted to make a good impression. You know, I don't need advice. I'm doing what I want to do. Stop standing there, come here. She pulled a chair away from the table with the pieces of cloth on it. Here, sit here. Here's the material, the threads, and the pattern. Go ahead. I want to see your work. Chuck, without a word of objection, sat down at his workstation, placed his briefcase beside the leg of the chair, and began his needlework. The sweater, which was hand-drawn on a piece of paper, looked beautiful, but this model had unusual sleeves, some inserts, ruffles, and a few other gimmicks. Chuck was doing the test work. Ingrid sat down at her sewing machine. She had to finish sewing the dress, which had to be finished by tomorrow. The order was urgent, and she was paid handsomely for the urgency. Several hours passed. During this time, the waif had time to finish her work and gave place at the sewing machine so that Chuck could finish his. And when it was done, Ingrid was surprised at how well he'd done. Oh, indeed. You did a good job. She looked at the blouse with an appraising eye. Tell me, who did you used to work for? Oh, I used to work for a tailor in our town, but he had an accident and I was out of work. Before that, I worked in an atelier. What happened to him? He got hit by a bus. How unfortunate, Ingrid muttered. So what town are you from? And you're not from around here. I'm from a small town called San Miguel. Never heard of it. It's in the southern part of the state. And what brings you here? Sad story. I lived with my mom. My dad died a long time ago. My mom recently. I went to the big city looking for a new life and a decent job. Sorry about your parents? Well, I like your work. Consider yourself accepted. But I have a few more rules I want you to follow. She briefly told him the rules of behavior in her house. The schedule she assigned him was not a set schedule, but the longer the better. And where are you staying? Do you have a place to stay? Unfortunately, I don't have a home here. I don't know anyone either. I arrived here a couple of days ago. I went to a cafe that had a computer to look for vacancies. I'm still living in a shelter, so I'm hoping to get a job so I can get a room. Ingrid felt a little sorry for the poor guy. He had such a sad story. She remembered the neighbor's abandoned house where our children used to play in the barn. No one had lived in that house for a long time. The old man had died without heirs, and the house had remained empty for many years. So she decided to offer him a place to live. Of course, I've never been inside myself, and I don't know how it is or if the electricity works. But still, it's a free roof over your head, and it's close to work. As for food, I can give you lunches on your paycheck. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Believe me, you just show me where it is, and I'll look around right away. And don't worry about the electricity. I can do a lot of other things, and I can fix anything. And I can spend my evenings with an oil lamp. Ingrid looked at him more closely. She wondered who he was. He had come out of nowhere, and he was so skillful. She showed him the direction of the house she'd told him about, but she didn't want to go there. At least, not yet. It was getting late, and I should have been home from work by now. Ingrid rummaged through the closet, found an old oil lamp, an old blanket, and a pillow, and gave it all to Chuck. He thanked her graciously and went to look around his new home. The kids were already frolicking upstairs in their room when I returned. My wife set dinner for us, as usual, and while she was setting dinner, she told me a little about her new assistant. Strange fellow. Just as long as he doesn't turn out to be some kind of crook. You keep an eye on him. Do you really doubt me and think I'd leave the first person in our house unattended? No. Just be careful with him. You know how many crooks there are these days. Ingrid told me she let him stay at the neighbor's house. After dinner, I took a flashlight and decided to visit the workaholic myself. When I got to the door, I decided to knock before I went in, but no one answered, and the door was unlocked. I stepped inside and started calling my wife's hired man by name while introducing myself as her husband and coming in peace. The electrics didn't seem to be working in this house after all, as it was dark everywhere, so I walked down a hallway littered with small trash, shining a flashlight. About a minute later, after my shouts, a thin man with a kerosene lamp in his right hand appeared at the top of the stairs. Yes, sir. I apologize for not responding to you right away. I shone the flashlight on him. He seemed so harmless and helpless. He started to come down slowly, like a ghost. That's exactly what he seemed to be in this semi-dark, deserted house. And the rays of the full moon shining through the windows gave him even more of a ghostly effect. Yes. Hello. I'm Max, Ingrid's husband. She told me about you, that she hired you, and that you're settling in here. I wanted to see how you were doing. Don't worry, sir. I'm doing just fine. I mean, it needs a little tidying up and some repairs, but on the whole, there's no electricity, but the water's running. So it's not as bad as it looks. It's good that you like it here. I'll help you out if I can. But I want you to know that my wife can be very gullible sometimes, and I wouldn't want her to get in any trouble because of you. No, sir. I'm here solely for my work. But if I'm in your way... He put his head down. I'm just warning you. If Ing shreds you to work for her, so be it. Good night. Thank you, sir. I went back inside. Something was bothering me. It seemed strange. Maybe I'd gotten so used to seeing more modern and normal people in the store that I'd forgotten how polite poor people trying to find a normal job could be. Why were you so down? My wife came up to me when I sat down in my usual place on the sofa to watch a little TV before going to bed. He's kind of weird. Don't you think so? I turned to her. Yeah, a little bit. So what? I told you, I gave him a pretty tough assignment today as a rookie, and he did great. Still, Ingrid, be careful. At least until we get to know him better. By the way, have you looked at his ID? Oh, you know that when he was telling me about himself, where he was staying, he said he'd been robbed that night. Stole the last of his money and his ID too. It was all in one wallet that was stolen. I don't like that. I wondered how I could check this guy out. Come on, we'll see. Hey, Max. I have a favor to ask of you. To ask of you, yeah. I need another sewing machine. Since there's gonna be 2 of us working, I need 2 sewing machines. We don't have to wait in line to stitch, do we? Okay, you can choose which one you want. Oh yeah. I already looked online, and it's in our town. I'll order it tomorrow and wait for delivery. Before I went to bed. I stared at the ceiling for a while, thinking about this guy. I couldn't stop thinking about this unknown and his sudden appearance. The next couple of days went by as usual. Chuck worked hard trying to please my wife. She was pleased with his work. He obediently did all her errands, showing her how much he enjoyed it and how important this job was to him. Then it was the weekend. I persuaded my wife to give her worker a day off as well. And when she let him go, we went with him to the house where he slept overnight and I helped him with some repairs. I also got my friend, the electrician, to help with the old wiring. Chuck only needed one socket to heat water for tea or to wash himself. He didn't even ask for TV and radio, saying that he had grown up without it and was used to paying attention to work or just relaxing. While we were helping to settle in, the children were playing in the old shed, sometimes peeking at us. They and the other boys asked to go inside to watch. I let them, but told them not to touch anything. And when they quieted their curiosity, they went back to their headquarters and soon left on bicycles. "See what funny kids you have," Chuck said. "My sons are growing up. Why did you let them come into the house? They can come in if they want. I don't have anything here anyway. I decide where they can and can't go," I said in a gruff voice, letting him know to stay out of my family's business. For the next week, my wife spent the evenings telling me how skillful he was, said the material was made for him to make something out of it. "Aren't you praising him too much?" I asked suspiciously. "I'm just telling him how our day went. Things are moving faster now. Just look at all the reviews." She shoved the screen of her phone in my face, with an open page of reviews of her online store. "I'm happy for you. Listen, why don't you open your own shop? Separate from the house. You could run your own business like a normal person. You already offered me that. I don't know why, but I don't want to. I like it this way. But you could hire not just one tailor, but a dozen. But at least I don't have to pay taxes. Let's just keep things the way they are for now." I accepted my wife's choice and pressed the remote to see what was on TV. Suddenly, I had an idea to check the identity of this suspicious guy. I remembered that my former classmate was now a police officer. We rarely talked to each other, but I decided to ask him for help. The next day, I came home from work at lunchtime, looking like I needed something. As I entered the house, I noticed a bit of strange behavior on the part of my wife and this assistant of hers. It was as if they were agitated about something. "Is something wrong?" I asked Ingrid. "Oh, why would you say that? You seem a little jumpy." "I'm just worried about another order. An organ mail, a customer with his own issues." Look here." She tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. I went through my nightstand, then the garage, and then back into the house. I walked over to the two of them, who were already busy stitching on their sewing machines. My wife was already sitting quietly, as usual, and as I came closer to her, I put my hand on her shoulder, and she even shuddered a little. "What do you want, honey?" she asked. "You know, I just had an idea. You have such a wonderful assistant. I'd like to capture your hardworking team on film. It'll be a memento of a good worker." "Yeah. What? It's not a bad idea," Ingrid said. Chuck was getting a little hesitant. He didn't seem to like the idea very much. His wife ran up to him, grabbed his hand, and pulled him to the rack, on which hung a row of ready-made garments sewn by the two of them. Chuck even tried to gently release his hand, but Ingrid gripped it so tightly that he had no choice but to follow her. Ingrid just loved taking pictures. She had tons of different pictures of her on her phone, including selfies. She was also a fan of printing out special moments and framing them. We had a lot of them already on the shelves and on the walls. "I'm sorry, but I don't really like having my picture taken," Chuck spoke up. "I don't want to offend you, but my family and I have always believed that a photograph takes away a piece of your soul. That's nonsense. Let's go." Ingrid kept dragging him along. I got into position and pointed my phone at them. Chuck was fidgeting as the camera clicked and the pictures were blurry. "Chuck, just stand up straight. How hard is it to stand for 2 seconds?" I showed it. Ingrid gave him a menacing look and squeezed his arm tightly. At that moment, I managed to take a picture. The wife looked like a formidable mentor in the photo, and Chuck's face was finally visible. "Oh, that's a great shot." The wife marveled when she came over to see what she'd gotten. I think it's your whole essence." "Exactly. Take this one to the print shop. I'll put it up around here somewhere." I left them, happy that I had managed to capture the face of the type, and I was glad that my wife believed in my idea to realize my plan. With this photo, I hurried to visit my former classmate. I called him on the way. He was just at the police station. I also called my deputy at the store and told him that I would be away for a while and that he should take matters into his own hands. When I arrived at the station, I was allowed to go straight to his desk. He had previously warned me at the entrance about my visit. Hey, Julie Pushchums, long time, no see. Yeah, it's been a long time. I realize you have a lot of work to do, but I have a very important favor to ask of you. It's personal, and if I could just keep it private for a while. So tell me what your problem is. I briefly told him how a man with no papers and a suspicious background came to work for us. My wife trusted him enough, but I didn't trust him. I provided my friend with a photo that clearly showed the man's face. Here it is. He identified himself as Chuck Niggle, but I'm gonna ask you to do a background check on him. See if he's some kind of crook. It's this whole lost eye thing. I don't believe it for some reason. Send me a picture. I'll see what I can find out about him. But no promises, and I can't tell you how long it'll take. My cop friend asked me. Here you go. I texted him a picture on my phone. I understand how much work you have to do, and believe me, I don't want to take up your time, but I'm worried about my family. I also told him where he lives now, but he is there mostly only in the evenings and at night, as he spends all day in his wife's workshop. My friend promised to do his best. Chuck's face looked suspicious to him too. I thanked him and went to my place of work. When I arrived, nothing bothered me for a while. I was sure Jack would find something on him. You can get information on anyone these days. That's when my phone rang. At first, I thought it was Jack digging something up, but when I looked at the phone screen, I saw that the number was unknown. Still, I answered the phone. Yes, Lex Queen. There was a low hissing male voice in the receiver as if it had been altered on purpose. Yes, it's me. I some important information for you about your wife. Your wife stood up from my chair. The thought that she might be in danger worried me a lot, especially considering the nature of the call. What kind of information? Who are you? It doesn't matter who I am. I'm gonna send you some videos. I want you to see what she's really up to. And if you don't want that information to go all over the internet, you're gonna have to pay a fee. $300,000. What? What the hell is that? But the caller had already hung up. I didn't realize what kind of information about my wife could get my family in trouble. I mean, she wasn't doing anything special. She just made custom-made clothes. Half a minute later, my phone beeped and I opened an incoming messenger message with a few videos. I sat back in my chair and started browsing. At that moment, my deputy walked into my office. Maximum, but not now. I stopped him with a gesture. I come back later. No matter how important your case is. He obediently left, and when I was alone, I pressed the play button. The videos the stranger sent me shocked me. There was footage of my wife having a lot of fun with her employee. The computer she was working on was set up in her workshop on a separate table, and the whole video was shot on a webcam. I saw her making love to Chuck right on the cutting table. I was shocked by her behavior. I never thought she was capable of such behavior. In the next video, I saw us talking to her, and she tells me that she is happy that she doesn't have to pay taxes for her labor since he was unofficially hired. I was in complete shock at the information I received. I realized that there was nothing criminal there, but still, such videos on the net would greatly damage both my reputation and that of my wife, and I would not want to have a showdown with an illegal worker. But the thing that shocked me the most was my wife's act, which I never expected her to do. And this video was obviously taken by a hacker, and now he was demanding hush money from me. I had no idea who this man was calling me, but I knew that Chuck had something to do with him. It couldn't just be a coincidence. At first, I wanted to call Jack and tell him to help me find this crook, but then I decided to do something else. While I was thinking, the phone rang again. So what's up? Do you see what your wife really does now? Are you willing to pay me not to put it on the net? Ah, okay. I decided to stall for time. How much time do I have? I don't have that kind of money right now, and I need time to get it together. I'll give you 24 hours. I'll call you back. I'll call you back this time tomorrow and tell you where to bring the money. He hung up again. I dropped everything and went home. The day was coming to an end. Just on the way, my assistant again wanted to ask me something, but I again courteously sent him away, saying that I had very important things to do. When I arrived, I saw Ingrid sitting alone in the kitchen, cooking something. Today was my question. Oh, you were early today? She smiled at me. Let's see. I wanted to punch her with that fake smile, but I held back. Did you let Chuck go yet? Yeah, he went to his room. Oh, why? Nothing. I just brought him something. Were the kids home? Yeah, they're playing video games in their room. So that's great. I went to the neighbor's house where Chuck lived, walked by the shed, and looked inside to see if anyone was there. The shed was empty. So that's great. No witnesses. I went into the house. I heard some wrestling upstairs, so it sounded like Chuck was in there. I started climbing the stairs, and with each step, my rage and hatred for him only grew. When I was at the top and entered his room, Chuck turned to me and asked me in his usual innocent voice, "Oh, sir, I didn't expect to see you here. What brings you to me?" Without answering, I pounced on him like a rabid tiger. I wanted to give him a good beating first for his antics with my wife. Chuck wasn't such a skilled fighter, and soon he was sitting in front of me with a battered and bloody face. "Admit it. Why did you come to us?" I growled menacingly. "I know you didn't just come looking for a job. Who is your accomplice? Zuri Pups Irritations? I don't know what you mean." I threw a few punches at him again. "Tark, arsehole. Who is your accomplice and how to find him? I'm not letting you go until you confess everything. I know you seduced my wife on purpose. Tell me who your accomplice is and where to find him." But Chuck wouldn't admit to anything. Bitch, you thought you could mess with another man's wife and get away with it. I couldn't stand it, and I happened to see a pair of sewing scissors lying on an old cabinet nearby, so I grabbed them and shoved them into Chuck's dignity with all my might. He howled in sharp pain. I released him from the hand I still had around his scruff. He bent in half, catching his crotch, and fell to the floor. I wanted to kill him, and I had a mental picture of where to put the corpse, but the fact that he was silent about his accomplice, I was sure they were working together, still held me back, and I approached him again, going to ask him my question once more. That's when I heard footsteps behind. I heard footsteps behind me and Jack's voice. "What's going on here?" he asked, shining his flashlight. "Oh my God. The maximum. What did you do?" I didn't know how to answer him properly, and I feared what might await me. Still, I told him in a nutshell about the call, and that I suspected Chuck wasn't working alone. "How did you end up here?" "I did some digging on your employee. His name isn't Chuck at all. It's Bill Valentine. He was almost caught for fraud a few years back, but he got away with it. So I was right, but he won't say who his accomplice is." And then I remembered that the programmer who did my wife's online store came to see us. I wasn't sure it was him, of course, but I told Jack about it. "Oh no, what have I done?" I was worried. "Don't worry. We'll figure something out. Right now, we need to call an ambulance for this bastard." While we were waiting for the ambulance, Chicks Jack and I stepped aside so that Chuck couldn't hear us. He's not going to be able to get away anyway. Jack made up a theory that I'd found out Chuck's real motive for showing up at our house to get money out of us, and when I'd gone to talk to him, he'd attack me, and I defended myself as best I could. I gave the coordinates of the programmer I gave my friend. He immediately gave them to his colleagues, and they immediately found the address and rushed there. I wasn't sure it was him. It could have been any hacker who had hacked into my wife's computer, but fortune was on my side this time. That man was Chuck's accomplice. A search of his computer turned up the videos he sent me. The obscene videos were avoided. Jack, by virtue of his authority, cleared me, and no charges of grievous bodily harm were filed against me. But I felt Chuck deserved what I'd done to him. After 2 weeks in the hospital, in which he had surgery to remove his genitals because the wound was too deep, I was even glad that he was tried and given a long sentence for fraud, given his past industrialization. The same was done to the hacker who had hoped to make money off me. I vividly remember the night they took Chuck to the hospital. I came back to the house, when my wife saw that my clothes were almost covered in blood and asked what was wrong. I punched her in her insolent face with such force that she suffered a broken jaw. That's as she fell to the floor. I walked over to her, told her I knew about her affair with Chuck, and swung again. But at that moment, I heard the laughter of the kids upstairs, who were playing something at that moment. That's what stopped me. I called an ambulance to my house, realizing that Ingrid was badly injured. I ordered her to be quiet and told her that she had somehow fallen and hit herself. Otherwise, I would separate her from her children forever and just shut her shop down. She had no choice but to agree. But my wife's change has been etched in my memory for a long time. I've never been able to forgive her. When she was discharged from the hospital, I gathered all the documents and filed for divorce. I could no longer live with a man who had betrayed me so easily and treacherously. I didn't go out of my way to destroy my ex-wife's business. It was enough for me that the children stayed with me after the divorce.